Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Karsh the Goblin. This is the Goblin Cave, and we have some sad news, unfortunately. So what's happened is this is when we're supposed to be doing our single class challenge, as you can see above, for our bards. Unfortunately, we've been trying to get this up and running and finalised, you could say, for the last few weeks, and it's just not going to happen. Some of it's been on me, that's for sure. My little goblin had a paediatrician appointment during one of the show's airings, one of the times that we were supposed to have, and that cancelled 1 week. We've had a couple of people sick and a few other things, and in theory, this was supposed to be finished weeks ago. This morning I woke up and one of the cast members has actually left the group, which means that Roll20 is looking for new people, which was very, very strange to me. To have applications for the game. So we actually had 3 applications overnight for the game. And I've just explained to those that applied that, look, we're going to cancel, which, surprise guys, we're cancelling. As you can see, we're here by ourselves, just doing nothing. But that's okay. So as I said, we're cancelling the game today. It's supposed to be only 4 weeks. We got 3 in. There we go, 3 in. And we'll just leave it at that. We do have our barbarians. They're at the 4th episode. They're doing quite well. The damage output is substantially higher. But they've also been working together quite well. They've gelled right from the session 0. They've been quite well. We have our druids game coming up as well. And for the druids, we have 2 cast members currently awaiting. They've signed up really early, and I've just relocated a lot of the applications from last night for this game to the druids and just see what we have and see who wants to do the druids game, who wants to not. The druids game will be an hour earlier than these games. That's mainly because and all our show times are about to start an hour earlier, but this is just because of daylight savings switches over in Sydney in the next couple of weeks. So that's pretty much what we're going. As I said, we don't have our cast members here today. I probably could have pulled in a couple of them just to have a debrief and go through everything. But instead, I'm actually going to do a debrief myself and just talk about what went on and what I think may have went wrong with the BARDS group. So first things first, we're pulling in 4 totally random people off the internet that have never met each other. This is a hard thing for a role-playing group. A very hard thing to actually get working, and it's hard to find the right group to actually be able to just accept it and just go straight in. And some of the casting issues is always going to be on me, because that's I'm responsible for it. Sure. Sometimes it's just hard to get the right gel and the right people. For the Prince of the Apocalypse, we have a great cast. Everyone just gelled perfectly. For other shows such as the My First Dungeon, some of the cast actually got in well and were taking it seriously. Others just were disruptive, and that can cause problems. Some of the Goblins games were great, some of them were poor. It's all about casting. And in this case, though we had some great players, they didn't really gel, and that led to area effect spells being cast on themselves, hurting each other, things like that, and a little bit of animosity through in play, which doesn't always help. The second is, bards are going to be a very, very difficult class to play when it comes to combat situations. Bards are one of those classes which are half and half. They do really well in social situations. They're not a great mage. They're not a great thief. They're not a great fighter. They're a little bit of everything, but great at social. And in that case, when you're in a dungeon where you have very little interactions, they did those really well, but they have very little interactions, so they did those well. They got through that, but a lot of it's going to be combat, and what surprised me is that every cast member picked Thunderwave, which is a spell which is area effect on themselves. And in your situation where you're in a dungeon, it's very hard to have yourself so far away from your party members that an area effect that large is not going to actually hit them. So Thunderwave's area effect was this. That's Thunderwave. So if I put that on my little goblin token, everyone is still affected. So you put that in a dungeon setting, that's really, really big. So it's not just here, not here as your line, but it is a actual square. So everyone is affected right across here. And that was an issue. And the option was there to pick up healing. So healing's one of the main problems with this entire challenge, is keeping everyone healthy. And right from the start, only one character picked up healing. Again, it was a lot about non-communication or lack of communication in the character building. It was like, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Some great character ideas. I love Blue Man Group, Yellow Dragon. I loved the Yellow Female Dragon. Absolutely loved that. I loved the country and western singer. So some of those character ideas were so brilliant, but they also didn't meet the challenge where you don't have healing. You're going to have to work together. We did have Dreadbeard try to be the tank. Very difficult to be a tank as a bard, and he did it well. And put himself out there first all the time, taking on the damage. But it may have worked better to actually pull together and do more of that role from everybody. Human variant is certainly an issue, or certainly a style which is probably more preferable to this style of dungeon. The other thing that happened was from the very first encounter, the giant rats, and we have another one down the bottom, they got a total party kill from the giant rats. This shouldn't be a case. The giant rats are a starter, they're just an intro. It's like, hey, you're just moving down, nothing to see here. And course, encounter. So when you have an encounter like this, it shouldn't be a total party kill. It shouldn't be as severe as it was, but it was severe, and it made it very hard for them to recover from that point on. And they spent a lot of the time from that point on 1 hit point, or very low hit point, and it was hard to recover after a bad start like that. I admit that first session, the dice were certainly in the GM's favour. I think I may have missed once or twice during that entire first episode, which was kind of scary as a GM to go, oh my god, I'm killing off characters. Well, there are mechanisms for that, but oh my god, I was killing off characters. So that was a thing. There was also, they did the traps very well. They were insightful with the traps from the start, when we went, okay, this is a trap, so we'll go down to all the way to the start. So they did the traps quite well. They were quite smart and quite intelligent how they dealt with the traps. They picked up some of the clues as well, which was really good. They couldn't key in where the ideas were, but they did pick them up, which was great. The methods are always going to be a killer. They're set there as an early, hey, you're going to die. This is really dangerous. And they did. They dealt with Meepo very successfully. As I said, the social side, they are really, really good at. And the bards are always going to be good at the social side, and they did that very well. With the kobolds, they dealt with them very well initially. Through here, they struggled a little bit through the fountain. They didn't pick up the fountain. Later, they didn't even pick up the top fountain. They didn't actually go to the north. They did straight line through to the Caltrops area, and they went through there a couple of times. They ended up killing some of the prisoners, and they didn't even get to Urky Timbers. They didn't release the prisoners because they didn't find it. they found Calcrux, and then made a deal with him, and then went to the south. They got lost. Again, this was on me. When they went lost, we weren't using Fog of War ticks. So Fog of War means that as you go around, everything else is darkened, but you can still see kind of where you can see where you've been. I tried rectifying this with Advanced Fog of War, and every time I started with Advanced Fog of War, it kept on crashing my browser for some reason. And so that was an issue on me, and so now we've fixed that. We're using just Fog of War for the other games, and it seems to be working quite fine, and people aren't getting lost, but they did get lost. So when they came down to here, and they saw the kobolds ready for attack, because they weren't subtle when coming to the kobolds, the kobolds were stacking up the doors like, oh wait, they thought there were goblins coming, but no, it was just them, no problem. But then they attacked, and then we settled it. I as a GM, I was quite easy on them, yep, and then okay, they started again. We settled it, we negotiated, and then again, and so it just became a slaughter. So in a game of Dungeons and Dragons or any role playing, as a GM, I can't allow and I can't reward slaughter. Like in Dungeons and Dragons, there is morals. There's adventurers are sociopaths or psychopaths. If you play from the other perspective, from the monster's perspective, adventurers are evil. They are really, really evil. Genocidal maniacs, and that's what adventuring is. It's genocidal maniacs. But when you've negotiated, when you've made deals, when you've traded with, and you're even in a loose alliance with a group, that's an alliance. You don't attack the group, and so as a GM, I can't reward a group that then attacks a group that you've got an alliance with, and so hence they spent almost an entire session killing all the kobolds. And in killing all the kobolds, they didn't get anything. What they did get was the keys and some of the scrolls and the rewards from them. So they stole that from their allies. They then went back to the skeletons, because they had now had a knock spell, opened the trap door and got into the skeletons, and because they were again spread out, a lot of the combats that we did, the party was spread out. They weren't working together in combat. They were very diverse. They weren't stacking up at doors. They were entering one at a time. There was very little backup between each other, which suffered quite substantially. And I think a lot of that was also because of the use of Thunderwave, because Thunderwave is such a big spell, massive area effect, that it's hard to stack up and trust people when they've got an area effect and they were using it so frequently. So they went into there, and as you can see, only one skeleton died. The other two were slightly injured, which was great, but only one died, and they just, another almost total party kill. Could have been another full total party kill. So then we started back into the restart point here. Things started getting very disillusioned. So it's like, oh, wait a sec, we've got the door here, which they never explored. The door is unlocked, you can explore it. Everyone just seems to miss it. It seems to be like a psychological thing that we always take the top one, and we don't take the bottom one. So they went to the bottom one. Giant rat injured it ran away. They get experience because it's injured. That's okay. They now had the key for the dragon door. They got through it. They passed the sonic light, or sonic ball, or crystal, resonating crystal ball, something. They threw Meepo into the trap, apparently. Meepo's skeleton, that was. They got through the secret passages. They got through bits and pieces. They actually found the secret passages, which is not a normal thing. So they did well. They actually did really well. Jot's always going to be an issue. And they came through here. So what they could have done here, they could have done things very differently. It took all of their combined strength to actually get the casket open, which is going to be a big thing for... I think the barbarians or maybe fighters are going to be the only ones that are going to be able to get that casket open easily. It's a really big challenge. And that should have maybe given them an idea of, wait, there's something big and something scary in it. Not just that, but the size of it. I don't know if it was me that I didn't give them enough cues that, like, something very bad is in here. It's locked in. It's sealed. And they had to do strength checks on every single seal. There were 6 of them. So that could have been me. And if it was me, yep. Things like that. So then the Dragon Priest comes out. The Dragon Priest is the biggest baddie in the entire place. Even looking at the second level of the dungeon, this thing here is the biggest baddie in the entire place. Even weak. So they did damage to it, but they couldn't figure a way of getting away from it. And so it was a bit weird. So it's, yeah. Some of the actions in the combat could have been chosen better. But even still, all they needed to do is get someone to jump over, lure them in there, get through the secret passage, and then run out and, yeah, etc. The idea that actually was come across in the many breaks in the forums, the ideas that came across were, hey, let's get them to follow us, and he'll chase us and we'll deal with the kobolds. Also deal with the goblins. Because they didn't know what was waiting for them on the other side of the door. They got to here, they explored up here, and there, and went down through here. So the goblins, they got all the way to here in the map here before, and they explored to the north, they explored to that door, and they went to the bottom door, and then went down towards the kobolds. They didn't get to essentially the goblin living quarters, the goblin nest. And yeah, that would have been a big fight. That would have been a really nasty fight. Even the barbarians group found that a very nasty fight. So yeah, it does happen. But in the forums, the idea that came across by one of the players was, hey, let the troll chase us, and we'll lure him into this section, which the troll would have pretty much attacked anything. And the troll ideally would have taken out everything there for them. Then they'd still have a problem with the troll. But it would have been a very smart move. Very intelligent playing in certain sections. But yeah, so that's how he pretty much ended. That's how he left off. 3 sessions in, they really struggled in combat. And there could have been better ways of doing things, but they did fairly well in other areas. So that's pretty much what it has. That's my debrief. I really enjoy actually running these. For me as a GM, it's a really simple dungeon to run. I don't have to do much prep, and it's a very simple area. It's deadly. It's dangerous, but if you play smart, you can actually. The key here is playing smart and working together, like really working together, and hopefully we can see the next groups do similar. I know the bards they came in for the session 0, and we do our tech. So before we do any show, we do a session 0, which is technical support, making sure our interfaces work or our cameras work. There's no issues here and there, and we generally have issues. About once every 2 times we do a tech support, about 50%, and then we do a character creation. And so before we even do character creation, we sit down and go, okay, what are the problems? What are the things you think are going to have to be addressed? And I won't give them hints. I will just tell them that there is problems, and that you're going to have to figure out what the deficiencies of your class is. Because it's all about classes and single classes and how you're going to get around those deficiencies. Like healing. Healing's a big issue for anything that's not a cleric or a druid, or even a bard. It should not have been that much of an issue. But it was. It really was. And they could have just taken rests. That was also an issue. They could have just taken some more rests. And they weren't even using much inspiration. They could have also given each other inspiration quite a lot of the time. I was expecting bardic inspiration quite a bit. But the Vicious Mockery, it's a free spell. Being a cantrip, 1d3 damage is just not much. I loved how it was like every Vicious Mockery that was used in-game was Mockery. For most, not every, but almost every. And I really liked that. Even if they were really poor insults, they were at least insulting. They were mocking the person they were trying to hurt. And I really liked the fact that they were used like that. So, we're going to leave it at that, and sorry that we're going to not have our 4th episode. As I said, I could have probably had some of the other cast members come in and just do a debrief and go, hey, what do you think? Where do you think you struggled? What happened? Instead of just me as a GM doing it. But I also don't want to point out who left as well. I don't want to name names or do anything like that. Because I totally understand this was supposed to be 5 weeks only. So 4 weeks of play, 1 week with the additional Session 0 character creation the week before. And people just don't have time these days to commit themselves to more than 5 weeks or more than 6 weeks. We are trying to work on a longer running campaign. I'm looking seriously at Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I've also been working on something similar to it, which I've been work in progress name, which has been Blades of Waterdeep, which is essentially Waterdeep Dragon Heist, but you are actually playing criminals. So essentially, you're a small gang of X amount of cast members trying to make a name for themselves in Waterdeep, the biggest city in Faerûns. And there's a lot of nice assets from Waterdeep Dragon Heist that we can use. So we're looking at that as well. Either way, we're going to have some fun. There's going to be more stuff going on. As I said, the times may change a little bit coming up, as we have daylight savings about to kick in Australia, or at least in certain states in Australia, one of which I live in. So have fun and enjoy your gaming. My name is Karsh the Goblin. This has been, unfortunately, the early wrap-up and cancellation of the single-class challenge bards. I will do the credit roll because I think it's important that everyone knows who was playing, and even though they're not here personally today, I'm very proud of my cast, very proud of the time that they put in. Some of the stuff that they did was really great. Some of them had great screen presence. Once again, I'm not going to name names. I think it was amazing. I think it was a fun show. The concepts there. Scarily, we had like 3 applications last night as I was sleeping in 6 hours to jump into a show. They're like, oh yeah, this looks awesome. And hopefully those people are interested in the druids as well and available for that. There's one I'm really curious about, and we'll just see what happens with that. So we've got no shows on next week. I may be able to sneak in a little bit of a sim racing because I've got to keep my races up. But I will have my Goblin all next week, so I won't be able to do any shows. But yeah, we've got some other stuff coming up, and we've got druids coming up. They're scheduled to do their Session 0 in 2 weeks' time. And we've got our final bards, our final barbarians in 2 weeks' time as well. So my name is Karsh the Goblin. This is the Goblin Cave. You've been listening to, if you can hear it, to Syrinscape in the background. So I'll turn it right up. So Syrinscape is a audio program for online and offline role-playing. They have a lot of different samples. It's not just a single loop tape. You can really mess with it and really have some customizable fun. I use it for all my audio now for my role-playing games. I think it's amazing. It's a big shout out for them. They're another Sydney-based company. They've won a boatload of awards for what they do and how they do it. They work with both Pathfinder and for Pathfinder and Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons, and they do also sci-fi and spooky horror, things like that. So anything from Star Wars you could have to D&D or fantasy to modern horror, Call of Cthulhu style games. So the range is massive that you can use their stuff for. But as I said, I'm going to go off. I'm going to run the credits roll, and hopefully you've been enjoying. Hopefully, you have enjoyed the show, and we'll be back more with future shows and future episodes, and different classes. So, bye.